Welcome back to the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. I'm Joe Noga, joined by Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, the Guardians dropped the opener of a 4-game series in Tampa Bay on Thursday night. They lose 4-2, but it wasn't even that close. It was a 4-0 lead for the Rays heading into the ninth inning. Jose Ramirez and Kyle Manzardo each hit solo home runs back-to-back to open that ninth inning, but Pete Fairbanks righted the ship, closed out the game, and the Rays win for the seventh consecutive time. They're on a hot streak. You're running into the Rays, a team that's in front of you in the wild card chase in the American League at the at the worst possible time, because they seem to be clicking on all cylinders offensively. And the Guardians, not to make any excuses, but they got into Tampa about 3 a.m. on early Thursday morning. Came to the ballpark and never really found that energy, never really found that groove to get the series started. Went hitless over the first 5 innings against Ryan Pepio, and Logan Allen, even though he threw the ball pretty well, didn't get the results because his teammates were sort of sleepwalking behind him.
Yeah, Joe, just a disappointing showing by the Guardians after, 2 encouraging games in Boston where they, combined to score 15 runs on 22 hits. You felt like, okay, they still got beat in the Boston series 2-3, they lose 2 out of 3 games, but the offense was coming around. You were encouraged. They were going to Tampa Bay to play the Rays. The team, like you said, is right in front of them in the wild card race, and they lay an egg like that. Just really disappointing. And you could tell in Vogt's in his post game comments that he's disappointed with the ball club. And Joe, I get get that they're playing 17 games in 17 days. And they get, there's weariness and fatigue come into this, but okay, they get into Florida at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's not like they're traveling by covered wagon here. They're on a charter flight. They've got all the room in the world. They're eating good food. Then they sleep in a luxury hotel. The Vinoy, I've been there in St. Petersburg. Come on, let's go. Let's play baseball. Let's show some energy. Let's act like you care that you're in a race.
Yeah, and I think Stephen Vogt sort of echoed those comments. When we asked him to start his post-game comments, we asked him about Logan Allen and how Logan Allen threw the ball, and he immediately went to, I thought Logan threw a great game. I thought we came out flat. That was, he immediately shifted the narrative in his first response away from Logan Allen and how he played, and, towards how the Guardians just didn't show any energy. He used the word flat. He said, we came out flat. I said, we're going to learn from this. And he sort of chalked it up to the Guardians, their young roster, not being able to adjust their routines when you get in late. And then, of course, you're playing in Tampa. You don't have the dome here in Tropicana Field. We'll talk about the ballpark here in a minute. But they were not able to take early batting practice or early fielding practice on the field because, as it does in Florida, anywhere in the 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock range, you get a shower or a rain shower. The tarp was on the field, no baseball activities on the infield at all, and it really sort of screwed up some of the routines for these guys. But Stephen Vogt said, we have to make adjustments. We have to come out, and we as a coaching staff have to sort of tell the young players how to make adjustments. Ballpark situation is a big adjustment in the first place, playing in a minor league stadium. But right now, if they can't get out there and do their work, it shouldn't lead to a game where they're committing errors and kicking the ball all over the place during the first couple innings.
This is the 139th game they played. I mean, if they don't have their routines down now, if they don't know how to compensate when the weather gets involved, what are they doing? This is this is the big leagues. You adjust, you adjust and you adapt and you move forward. I mean, come on. I mean, it's like these guys haven't been playing baseball since they've been 10 years old. They've never ran into a rainstorm or, a delay in a game. Come on. This was not, they didn't put their best foot forward last night, and it's disappointing. Now there's 23 games left in the season. Are they in this thing or not? Do you get that vibe that they think they are, or do they care?
Whether I think they are or not, that they actually are, just because of the schedule ahead of them and the teams that they play in front of them. They've got 3 more with the Rays. If they sweep those 3 games, as crazy as it sounds, they climb that much closer to Seattle. Another team that's in front of them right now is the Royals. They play them 4 times next week. A 4-game series at home, you've got the Royals. You could make up a ton of ground in that. You just have to get hot, and right now, this team doesn't seem like it's got the potential to do that, to sustain any sort of hot streak. They can win a couple of games back to back if the guys swing the bats the right way, but I just haven't seen it out of them, the ability to sustain any sort of, streak long enough to get them back into a spot in the wild card race.
They've been Jekyll and hiding it all year. We've seen them on hot streaks, we've seen them on cold streaks, and this is an opportunity of the season sitting right in front of them. Well, I mean, they played 500 baseball almost the whole year. They've got one of the worst offenses in baseball, maybe the one of the worst offenses in Cleveland history that we've been watching day in and day out, and they're still in it. And if these guys don't realize it, shame on them.
Yeah, or you understand that the home runs by Manzardo and Ramirez last night helped them avoid their 16th shutout loss. I had it already written up and ready to go as a shutout loss, and they hit those 2 home runs. It's like it's nice to see, but it causes me extra work there at the end of the night. 16 right now they're at 15 shutout losses. The last time they had 16 losses by shutout, 1991. It's been that
That's the
long
year they
since.
lost 105 games, a franchise record.
Yeah, the franchise record for most shutout losses in a season is 24. That goes back to 1914. So, I mean, you're talking about uh, a level of futility with this offense that they haven't seen in at least 30 years. They lead the major leagues right now with 18 games where they've collected 3 hits or fewer in a game. Last night they had 3 hits. 2 of them left the ballpark, but 3 total hits 18 times in this season so far. That's a lot. That's a lot of games being held to 3 or fewer hits. And Jose Ramirez looked like he finally got back on track last night. His first 2 at bats drove the ball deep to center field. And then he had the base hit to the gap and the home run in the ninth. But Ramirez, since August 14th, when the Guardians were coincidentally within a half game of the wild card at that point, he's just not looked the same since the middle of August. Just really been struggling over that stretch.
Yeah, he's just been taking bad swings. I don't think he's he's not healthy for sure, Joe. There might be something with his hands. Maybe it seems like he's kind of limping around a little bit, but I don't think well, I know he's not 100%, and who is, at this time of the year, but Joe, when you look at the lineup these guys run out there day in and day out. This is the lineup. This is the batting averages for last night's lineup after the game. Kwan 272, Schneemann 215, Ramirez 280, Manzardo 232, Naylor 180, Jones 214, Arias 221, CJ Kafis 200, Rocchio 233, and he's one of your hottest hitters. I mean,
Mhm.
and the average major leaguer in the big leagues, the average major league batting average in the big leagues today is 246. They've got 2 players hitting over 246. I mean, it's amazing to me that they are where they are, and I have no explanation for it, Joe. I mean, how can they be on the edge of making the postseason with this lineup?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive that they've been able to maintain being competitive for this long. You just wonder how much longer it'll hold out. And like you and I were talking about before we started recording, by the end of this next week, after they finish up with Tampa Bay, after they finish up with Kansas City, we're going to know where they stand in terms of that wild card. And the 3 teams between them and Seattle. Texas is playing well, so it's going to be hard. And Texas comes to Cleveland for the last series of the season, so it's going to be hard to count them out completely, but we'll know one way or another probably by the end of next week. Want to talk about the ballpark that they're playing in. We mentioned the difficulties getting on the field pregame because it's an open air stadium, because Tropicana Field not an option. Hoynes, in the visitors clubhouse at George Steinbrenner Field, when you walk in the clubhouse, on the wall they have one of those big mural photographs, and it's looking up from the infield at Tropicana Field after the devastation of Hurricane Milton. The roof is torn off, and there's all sorts of scaffolding, and everything is just a mess. It's a full-size mural, sort of photo on the wall there in the visitors clubhouse, so that basically anybody who walks into the clubhouse and says, man, this stinks, we're in a minor league ballpark, we're major league players in a minor league ballpark. It's a stark reminder, as to why you're in a minor league ballpark. It's because there's no other option. The ballpark that you were supposed to be playing in was basically torn asunder. I thought that was sort of an interesting approach for the clubbies there in Tampa to take, and as a subtle reminder to the players, hey, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, definitely. I heard the Yankees put a lot of money into that into the ballpark, Joe, just to bring it up to major league standards.
I'm telling you, the single A Tampa Tarpons are the team that plays there during the regular season, and it's the Yankees, obviously their spring training home, but it's for a single A team. This is the nicest ballpark I've ever seen in terms of for that level. It's a really nice park. The stands are nice and everything is set up, but it's still got a minor league feel to it. They announced the crowd is 8,000 last night. That's not going to cut it. There's no third deck on that. You get that major league feel when you walk into a ballpark and you look up and there's that third deck, and they don't have that here. They do try to do a lot of nice things. Yesterday pregame ceremony, they officially gave a citizenship ceremony, a U.S. naturalization ceremony. There were about 25 people on the field. There's a real minor league feel to the game. I don't know if it affects the Guardians and their play as much. Guys like Kyle Manzardo had played there when he was with the Tampa
Sure.
organization. Austin Hedges, you mentioned that he had played there when he did spring training with the Pirates, so it's not a big deal for them. The thing that's kind of unique is the dimensions of the ballpark are an exact replica of the dimensions at Yankee Stadium. So you've got the short porch in right field, the 314 feet down the right field line, and the deep sort of left and left center gaps there. But for Jose Ramirez, who's got a 393 career batting average in Yankee Stadium, I think his OPS is up over 1100 at Yankee Stadium. It's no wonder that he's had two hits and one of them was a home run last night.
Good for him. Yeah, definitely. I covered a couple games there, Joe, when the Indians were in Winter Haven, trained there. I really can't remember too much. What was the press box like?
Small, and the sight lines weren't very good. I was sort of behind a window post and all that, so not the greatest. The press dining wasn't all that. They had fried chicken. It was not great, but I wouldn't recommend it. Last year at Tropicana Field, I thought the press dining was a lot better. But again,
Yeah.
I'm not a guy who misses a lot of meals, so it really just goes to the feeling of they were sort of rushed getting in last night, and on top of that you've got the stadium situation, and it all added up to them coming out without a lot of energy. And Stephen Vogt, for the first time, I thought, really sort of criticized his team, saying, hey, we came out flat. We need to come out with more energy. We're going to learn from this. Tell he didn't think that it was acceptable the way that the team played.
I'm glad he did, Joe. It's about time somebody said something. I mean, this has been going on so long. And Joe, I mean, what is Vogt going to do with this lineup? I mean, he's basically got the same guys day in and day out. They haven't changed. They can't, change 26 guys at this point of the season. So you got to run these guys out there. When all is said and done at the end of this season, this is a bad reflection on the front office and the way they put together this offense. I mean, I just don't get it, Joe. I just don't see why they didn't add to this offense, especially coming off a year where they went to the ALCS. And I know this is kind of looking back, I mean, this is like an obvious cheap shot, but it's just, I think it's more of a reflection on the organization than anything Vogt has done. I mean, he's got to play the players that are in the clubhouse.
Yeah, and he's got to keep everything positive, and that's what we've heard from him all year. Even in the most sort of dire situations, he's stayed positive, and give him credit for that. But sometimes it's what are we doing here is sort of the question. Before the game, Nick Enright placed on the 15-day injured list. Enright, sort of a really great story this year. So it's unfortunate to see him have to go down. Right elbow inflammation and forearm inflammation. And that's never a good sign when you're talking about a pitcher. Generally those issues where that could lead down the road to a Tommy John surgery. They start when you get the forearm inflammation, the tightness there. They said that Enright, after his outing against Seattle last week, he felt something. They put him. They didn't pitch him for 4 days. He went back out there, pitched against Boston, 2/3 of an inning, and felt it again the next day. So they put him on a plane heading back to Cleveland, and he'll get checked out. I would assume at some point, either today or early next week. But not a great situation for Enright, who had worked himself into sort of a leverage role with this club.
Yeah, he'd done a great job, Joe. He's one of those guys that came up and helped them.
Mhm.
Especially they've done a good job with that bullpen, mixing and matching. Enright was one of them, and just a great story, like you referred to. A cancer survivor, a guy that's still undergoing cancer treatments. What for Hodgkins? I think he's got one or maybe two more at the end of the season to go. So I hope everything works out for him with the elbow. Maybe it's just a sprain. Maybe he just needs some rest. And, we're not looking at, any kind of surgery.
Yeah, it's. I think we looked it up. He hadn't reached like his career high in innings or anything like that. So it might not be like an overuse sort of injury or anything like that. But yeah, you're right. This is a guy who's overcome so much just to make it to the big leagues. You talk about the beating cancer, and he's that's well documented what he's gone through. But like you said, I think his last 14 outings, he's only given up 2 earned runs since he came back in July, back to the roster after being optioned to Columbus. But he'd sort of gained Stephen Vogt's trust, and after the Emmanuel Clase suspension, and where everybody sort of shifted their roles in the bullpen, he sort of benefited from that by being a guy who came in as a fireman and had been given some of those leverage innings. They're going to miss his presence. They promoted Zach Kent, so Kent is back after I think he was a day off and a day back on because of the injury. So he was back in the clubhouse. He told one of the clubbies that he had flown all the way to Columbus after being optioned, and then had to fly all the way down to Tampa. So you want to talk about somebody who was a little bit jet lagged? That was definitely Zach Kent prior to yesterday's game. Hoynes wanted to mention something we saw in two things that we've seen. The Houston Astros right now, a hotbed of controversy all over the place. Two incidents in the last couple of days, sort of raised some eyebrows. A team that's always sort of in the spotlight because of the success that they've had. A couple of days ago, Framber Valdez gave up a grand slam after his catcher waved him off and said, "Hey, step off the rubber, step off the rubber." He stayed on. He threw the pitch, got hit for a grand slam. The very next pitch, Valdez crossed up his catcher, hit him with a fastball right in the chest protector. A lot of people saw the video, saw this, and said it's pretty obvious that he did it on purpose based on his body language, based on a lot of other things. Have you ever seen a pitcher intentionally hit their catcher with a pitch because they were angry at them?
That's a first, Joe. I've seen a pitcher, when the umpire, squeezed him, and they must have had a sign where the catcher doesn't catch the ball, and it hits the umpire in
Yeah,
the
the
in the
Tigers
chest.
did it.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I've never seen a pitcher hit his own catcher, cross up his own catcher, and intentionally hit him. And Joe, like I watched that a couple times, and and it was right down the middle. I don't,
Hmm.
unless this
It was called
catcher.
a strike.
Yeah,
It
I
was
don't see
the pitch was called a.
how he missed it unless he was expecting a breaking ball or something. But I mean, it was right down the middle. So I mean, I don't know. But then the way Valdez just turned and didn't even look at him, and the look on the catcher's face, it looked like he wanted to kill the guy.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious. I think Valdez coming up on a free agency year. So what does that do for his? It's not going to matter. Some team, probably the Yankees, going to pay for Amber Valdez quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
This is you can behave like that, I guess, if you know you're going to get paid. Wherever you wind up.
Yeah, and the catcher I think had just been called up, right? I don't think
Right.
he'd been
Yeah, he's a rookie.
he caught him very much. So who knows what was going on there? That was weird.
Well, fast forward to another weird incident last night as there was a bat controversy. When was the last time we had a good bat controversy in baseball? You know, you go back to the torpedo bats that the Yankees were using early in the season, and everybody wanted to sort of take advantage of that. Well, now it's the Yankees calling out Taylor Trammell from the Astros. Aaron Boone had Trammell's bat confiscated in the ninth inning last night as umpires were looking at it. They said that it was too shaved, that the trademark area, the label area on the barrel of the bat had been shaved down, had been sanded down in some way, and Boone said that made it illegal. The bat was removed, and the Yankees went on, won the game 8-4. Hoynesy, when was the last time you saw a manager come out, a little bit of gamesmanship there late in the game and pull a player's bat?
Well, that goes back to I think 1994, Joe, when Gene Lamont of the White Sox came out and confiscated Albert Bell's bat at Comiskey Park, and all sorts of stuff happened after that. But that history was made that.
Jason Grimsley remembers that as the night that he crawled through a heating duct to switch the bat out. Huh?
Yeah, and put Paul Sorrento's bat in there instead of another one of Albert's bats, because all of Albert's bats were corked that he took on the trip. And that started like a feud between the White Sox and the Guardians. And then what? The next year in '95, when Albert hit the home run against Boston in game one of the ALDS, or the first round of the postseason, they confiscated that bat and they sawed it in half, and it was not corked. So
Yeah.
I mean,
That led to the immortal image of Albert Bell flexing his bicep across the diamond, pointing into the Red Sox dugout. You did something wrong there when you angered Albert at that point. But that night, weren't you in the bowels of Jacobs Field at 2:30 in the morning watching the American League president saw the bat in half?
I think we saw the bat. I can't remember. I think Dennis Maniloff was chasing that. Dennis was on the prowl for the bat, and I think who was the president was Bobby Brown. I think Dr. Bobby
Mhm.
Brown was the president and the American League president at that time. They sawed the bat in half, and it was thankfully it was not cork.
Well, I'm watching the video of this incident last night, and they gave the bat to the authenticators, the guys that authenticate the balls and things that sit there, just off to the side of the dugout. They're and Taylor Trammell gesturing into the Yankees dugout. Hey, nice job, guys, way to go! You took my bat, congratulations.
And they didn't want anybody switching that bat either. So
No, it was authenticated right after he hit a double off the wall in left field there in the ninth inning. They were waiting, they were biding their time. I think Aaron Boone had that one all chalked up. So definitely something to what what's going to be the next fun incident that comes out of Houston. I'm sure they're not done. Hoynesy, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. We'll be back next week with a full week of shows. We'll talk to you then.
good deal.